What do you say when someone asks, "So what do you do?" Most of us answer without thinking. I'm a designer. I work in finance. I'm a freelancer. I'm a student. As if that explains who we are. As if our job description is our introduction to existence. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that what we do is who we are. That our value is measured by our output. That our identity is stitched from productivity. If you're doing well, you're worth something. If you're struggling, you must be falling behind. And if you stop completely, what then? Who are you without the work? Without the projects? Without the performance? We're told to follow our passions, but then we're only praised when those passions produce results. Make money, get noticed, achieve milestones. Suddenly, passion becomes pressure. Joy becomes obligation. Even rest feels like a waste unless it makes you more productive later. Even hobbies feel like they need to be side hustles. In this world, it's not enough to just be. You have to justify your being through constant doing. And quietly, without noticing, you become your role. You don't just have a job, you are your job. You don't just accomplish things. You become your accomplishments. It's a subtle trap. It doesn't feel cruel at first. It feels motivating, empowering even. Until one day, it doesn't. One day, the work dries up, or your title changes. Or the success that once defined you stops arriving, and suddenly, you don't just feel lost, you feel invisible. Like without your role, you don't exist at all. That's the trap. And most of us are already inside it. Not because we chose it, but because no one ever taught us how to separate who we are from what we do. But maybe now it's time to ask the question we've been afraid to ask. If I stopped doing, would I still be someone? Think back, not to your biggest achievement, but to the moment you first learned that being loved meant being useful. Maybe it was when you got a gold star for finishing your homework early, or when your parents smiled just a little wider after hearing you aced a test. Maybe it was the good job you heard after cleaning your room or helping without being asked. Praise feels good, it always has. But underneath it, a subtle message forms. You are lovable when you are impressive. You are worthy when you are helpful. You matter when you produce something we can point to and say, "Look, that's a good kid." No one meant to hurt you. They were trying to encourage you. But repetition becomes belief, and belief becomes identity. So you kept trying, kept producing, kept achieving. Because every time you did, you felt like someone, like a person with value, with a place in the world. You learned that your emotions were secondary to your behavior. Your needs didn't matter if you weren't doing something to deserve being noticed. That being seen required being useful. Slowly, without realizing it, you traded in your curiosity for competence. Your wonder for work ethic, our aliveness. For approval, the applause came, and it felt like love. So you chased it. Through school, through college, through your 20s and beyond. Through job titles, promotions, side projects, checklists, and burnout masked as ambition. Because deep down, you still believed that if you stopped achieving, the love would stop too. But here's the quiet tragedy. You were never loved for who you truly were. Only for how well you performed. That's not your fault. It's the blueprint many of us inherited. And maybe no one ever taught you how to feel worthy when you weren't doing enough. But you can learn now. You can unlearn the old rule. It's the rule that says you have to earn rest, earn peace, earn belonging. Because the truth is, you never had to earn any of it. You were already enough, long before you did anything. To prove it, somewhere along the way, achievement stopped being something you did and became something you are. You're not just someone who works hard, you are your work ethic. You're not just someone who gets things done. You are your accomplishments. You're not just someone who's capable. You have to be capable or else. Who even are you? When achievement becomes identity, there is no room for pause. You can't rest. Because who are you without the grind? You can't fail because failure doesn't feel like a lesson. It feels like death, like erasure. You stop taking risks not because you're lazy, but because the cost of being less than excellent feels too high. You stay in safe zones. You overthink. You overperform. Because if you don't impress, you don't exist. Even the smallest mistake echoes in your mind for hours. How could I mess that up? I should have known better. You replay conversations, emails, tiny awkward moments like they define your whole character. Your internal voice stops sounding human and starts sounding like a relentless boss who never clocks out. And then there's burnout. Odd. Not just tiredness, but a deep emotional exhaustion that comes from living your entire life on a performance stage. But here's the twist. Even in burnout, you still feel like you're not doing enough. You still feel guilty for resting. You still think, if I were stronger, I could push through. Because in your mind, productivity equals strength, rest equal weakness, slowness equal failure. You start hiding your struggles to protect the image. You show up smiling when you're breaking inside. You say, I'm fine. When your soul is begging to stop, you become a brand, a mask, a LinkedIn summary instead of a living, breathing human being. And one day, you wake up and realize you haven't felt joy in months. That even when you win, you feel numb. That you don't remember the last time you did something just because it made you feel alive. When achievement becomes identity, there's no finish line. There's just more. More to prove, more to do, more to become. But what if the real work is not in chasing more, but in asking, who am I if I stop performing? That question is terrifying, but it might just be the doorway to the freedom you've been aching for. No one tells you that rest can hurt, not physically, but emotionally, that it can feel like grief. A quiet kind of mourning for the person you believed you had to be. You finally stop. You cancel the meetings. You log off early. You say no to one more task. And instead of peace, you feel guilt, emptiness, discomfort, a strange sense of floating. Because without something to chase, something to build, something to fix, you don't know who you are. There's no applause, no deadline, no checklist. Just you, sitting in a room with yourself, and suddenly, that silence is deafening. You thought rest would feel good, but it feels like losing the only version of you that people seemed to value. The version that was useful, the version that was inspiring, the version that never stopped moving without the doing. You fear you've become invisible. Like the moment you slow down, the world forgets you. Or worse, you forget yourself. You start to wonder, was I ever valuable if I wasn't constantly earning it? There's a grief that comes not from loss, but from revelation. The kind that whispers, you've built your identity on sand. That all those years of striving gave you purpose, but not peace. Pride, but not presence. So now you sit in the stillness and it feels like something is dying. And maybe it is. Maybe the version of you that couldn't stop proving is finally breaking apart. But here's what no one tells you. Grief isn't the end. Grief is the middle. It's what happens when the old story crumbles. But the new one hasn't yet begun. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are grieving. Grieving the hustle. Grieving the mask. Grieving the belief that you were only ever as good as what you could offer. And grief, though painful, is sacred because it means something inside you is shifting. Something rigid is beginning to soften. So sit with it, not forever, just long enough to feel the ache and name it. This is what it feels like to come home to myself. No performance. No productivity, just presence. And for now, that is enough. If you take away the job, the title, the accolades, Who are you? If you're not the one who shows up early, stays late, over-delivers, fixes everything, then what's left? Most people never ask this because it's terrifying. Like standing in an empty room and realizing the walls were only props and the ceiling was never real. Without the doing, without the roles, the perfectionist, the provider, the fixer, the room goes silent. And in that silence, you finally meet yourself. Not the performer, not the achiever, not the good one, who always knew the right thing to say. Just you, raw, uncertain. Present, at first it might feel like nothing, like there's no substance to you without your productivity. That's okay. That's what healing feels like at the beginning, like emptiness. But the truth is, you've never been empty, you've just been covered. Layer after layer of approval, performance, and expectation. And when you stop doing, you start noticing the parts of you that were never allowed to grow. The parts that were curious without needing to be correct, that were playful without having to win, that were soft and kind and not useful, but real. You begin to see yourself not as a product, but as a person, not as a tool, but as a being. You are not the things you produce. You are not the boxes you check. You are not the list of things you've done right or wrong. You are what remains when all of that falls away. And here's the quiet miracle, that nothingness you feared so much. It isn't a void, it's a field, a clearing, a place where something new and true can finally grow. Maybe for the first time, you don't need to do to deserve peace. Maybe this moment, this breath, is enough. And maybe you have always been enough, even when you forgot to believe it. You are still worthy, even now, especially now. Not because of what you've done, not because of what you'll do, not because of how much you give, how well you perform, or how good you are, but simply because you are. You're worthy even when you're tired, even when you don't feel useful, even when the world forgets your name or doesn't recognize your effort. You don't have to earn your existence. You already belong here. You don't have to justify your right to breathe, to rest, to exist without doing. That's not what you were made for. You weren't born to produce. You were born to be, to feel the sun on your skin, to laugh without purpose, to hold someone's hand not because it's efficient, but because it's human. You are still worthy when you're uncertain, still worthy when you're healing, still worthy when you're messy, incomplete, imperfect. You don't need to be impressive to be enough. You don't need to be admirable to be loved. You don't need to be extraordinary to be whole. You are not a project. You are a person. And people don't need to be optimized. They need to be held. Let that sink in. Let it rest in your chest like warm tea on a cold morning. Let it soften the sharp parts that have been told they're only lovable when they're productive. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to move slowly, to change your mind, to begin again, and still, you are whole. Still, you are real. Still, you are enough. Not someday, not when you finish healing, not when you right here, in this exact breath. Because the deepest kind of worth was never something to earn. It was something to remember. You don't have to play the role anymore. Not the overachiever. Not the one who has it all together. Not the fixer. Not the strong one. You can set them down, gently, like costumes after the play is done. Because you were never just the role. You were always the person inside it. Maybe for years you lived through your title, wore it like armor, used it to navigate the world, to feel safe, to be seen, and maybe it worked. For a while, but now you're being invited to live without it. It's not because the role was wrong, but because it's too small for who you are becoming. There is more to you than the version that performs. There's the part of you that still wonders at the sky, that loves slowly, laughs loudly, and listens deeply. You're not here to be impressive. You're here to be real, to be curious. to be kind. To be whole, not because of what you achieve, but because of how you exist. The world may still try to define you by your output, but you don't have to agree. You can wake up and choose. Today, I am not a machine. I am not a brand. I am not a summary of bullet points. I am a soul. I am breath. I am presence. I deserve love, even when I'm doing nothing at all. You may forget again. It's okay. You may fall back into the noise, into the doing, into the need to prove. That's okay too. Just come back. Come back to this stillness, to this knowing, to this version of you that is free from performance. Come back as many times as it takes, because the real you has never been lost. Just waiting. Beneath the deadlines, beneath the hustle, still here, still breathing, still whole, and maybe that's enough. Maybe it always was. This is quiet philosophy, where thinking isn't loud, and life doesn't need to be either. Subscribe if you haven't already, not for noise, but for something you can actually feel.